Well, good afternoon. I'm Rebekah Stathakis. I'm from Northwestern in Chicago. So a lot of things we're doing are very similar, although also different in unique ways. Just to give you a little bit of background about our program, so we're with undergrads and master's students who are going through a traditional teacher education program. And I wanted to start with what the students say, because as I think about why we're using video, they kind of summed it up for us in these exit surveys they completed for us. So one student said the most beneficial part of the edTPA was looking at the video. I noticed when the students were engaged, when they were not, how my positioning in the classroom made a difference, etc. The process really forced deep reflection on teaching, and now I can use that in my job interviews too. So like you just were asking about in terms of edTPA or not, every assignment we do with video, we try to craft something that we would use even if the edTPA goes away tomorrow. You know, that we wanted it to just be focused on good teaching, reflective practice, and that also prepares them for the edTPA, but it really is preparing them for a life of being a career educator who really believes in the importance of deep reflection on practice. And another person said, I learned a lot by analyzing myself on film. There are a lot of things that are going on during any given lesson, and sometimes there are even things in my behavior that I wasn't aware of at the time. And we found that the more we do with video, the more the students are noticing. And that's kind of the focus of what I'll share, is that we're really trying to use the video for self-reflection. Many of us subscribe to kind of a constructivist approach, and we want our kids in the classroom to be making sense of things and using evidence to generate their own ideas. And yet, when we talk about preparing teachers, a lot of times we end up with supervisors and mentors telling them what to do, saying, you should say this to the student, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. Well, wait, who's constructing the knowledge? Who's giving the ideas? Who's making sense of what happened in that lesson? The supervisor is, the mentor is. And we wanted to shift that to where we could help students, our student teachers, really gather evidence of student thinking, of learning, of confusion, of engagement, of deep inquiry, but have our student teachers really construct then their own knowledge and their ideas about what to do with that. And so our focus was really on using video. I mean, sometimes it is for that coaching and for us giving very specific feedback, but it's also a chance for our student teachers to really think deeply about their practice using evidence and having them construct the knowledge and the ideas. So a little bit about us. I told you, we've got undergrad and masters. Our master's program is either 1 or 2 years, so sometimes it's also like just a crunch to get them through. We're on the quarter system. So in the fall, all of our teacher candidates are completing a practicum where they're doing at least 100 hours in the field, and they stay at the same site then to student teach in the winter. So they're building relationships with those students, with the mentors, they're gaining a good sense of the curriculum, and then in the winter they stay on and take on the full schedule. So like you, we have in the fall, in the practicum class, we're doing 3 to 4 video-based activities, and then in the winter they're doing about 1 a week, so that they're really videotaping themselves regularly. And we've been using video a lot for a long time at Northwestern. I actually graduated from the program a long time ago, and I have a VHS tape of the video I was required to submit. So now we've progressed quite a ways from that, but it's something that has been important to the program for a long time. Now in Illinois, edTPA is consequential. They have to pass it to earn their license, so that just adds a different layer to the equation. So I wanted to start with logistical issues, which is what you were just asking about. You all know it's a pain. It really, truly is. What we do is in the fall, we start by giving all of our student teachers release forms for every student that they will come in contact with. That's especially hard at the secondary level where you might have 150 students that you're seeing, but we ask that they give those to every student they will come in contact with, so that if they are videotaping, they don't need to worry about not having the release forms. So they pass those out at the very beginning of the practicum so that they can start videotaping immediately. And we embed these video-based activities from that very start so that when they get to the edTPA, there are no technical problems. I mean, one just actually texted me a few minutes ago and said, the fire alarm went off during my edTPA video. How will they think about that? So I can't control the fire alarm, but they do know how to use their equipment very well because we do it right from the start. And their kids, the first day, wave at the camera and then get over it and move on and don't really think about it. We do have some technology available, like you, we give them 2 weeks. So it's, some of them then are like, oh no, I got to turn this back. Some schools have it. We actually have some public libraries that will check out video equipment, and they also do use their phones. We have a set of swivels, which are very nice. If you haven't seen swivel, I do encourage you to check that out too, because they work very well for tracking the student teachers. They move around the room. So we have some equipment they can check out, and they can also use their own devices. And Edthena really works well for all of the different devices. And you were asking about logistical questions. The nice thing is I don't answer those questions anymore, because I just say email support@edthena.com and the kids go and email them, and that takes care of it. And so our class time is focused on the teaching and the learning and not on the technical issues, which is great for me because I don't want to be focused on that. So we really want to think, how can we use video to help teacher candidates reflect meaningfully on their practice? And so I just brought 4 sample activities we do. Like I said, we have 1 a week, and then the 3 to 4 in the fall quarter. So we have about 14 or 15 different assignments that we use that are video-based. So we start with a class design video, which initially seems like, oh, that's not that big of a thing. It's not that important. But I actually would say that to me, this has become one of the really important videos that we do. It's very early on in the practicum. So week 2 or 3, they need to go in their classroom and give us a tour of the room. So they just stand in the middle, walk around, and tell us what's in the space. And part of why it's so useful is it right away from the start shows the mentors that we're serious, we're going to use video all the time. Because right away, a couple weeks in, they're videotaping. And it's without the kids, so they still are collecting those permission slips. They're fine, because they're just giving us a tour of the classroom. We talk about what resources are available, and I got to tell you, I mean, being in Illinois, where we've got some in Chicago suburbs, some in Chicago public schools, it's staggering to look at the difference in the classroom, where this year, literally, I have someone who has 2 smart boards, one on either wall, so that students can work collaboratively, and then somebody who was told this past week that they ran out of money for paper, so she can no longer make photocopies for the rest of the year. And so they look at these different videos, and we have very different discussions about equity in education. So they do this classroom design video, and they talk about how the physical space impacts their learning. And I'll just show you a quick sample so you can see kind of what the students comment. But like Megan was telling you, the students can tag, and so they can add comments as they're watching. And it becomes a nice opportunity for these students to see each other's rooms, because they'll never get the chance to go out into all of their 20 colleagues' classrooms. But this gives them a chance to see where they are. And it's funny because they do this in the fall, and actually just a couple weeks ago, someone said, pull up your class design video, because I can't picture where what you're talking about right now. And so they'll come back to them and say, oh, now I remember, when you're talking about how you had to move the desks, now I have a sense for that. So I'll just show you a short clip of this so you can see how it works.
Hi, this is Asia, and here's the classroom where I'm student teaching in at Whitney Young. As you can see, the desks are in little groups, and they're always set up like this. So they have a seating chart for each class. They all sit with the same group all the time. She has a whiteboard over here where she keeps the homework assignments.
And you can see everywhere there's a little yellow line. That's a tag that she added.
4
and so then
classes
there's
that
a
are all
comment
doing
at the
same
bottom.
thing, so they can all see their homework.
And it can be her comments or her classmates.
She studied art in undergrad, so she has a lot of art on the walls. This is a smart board. So she can use pens. She can write on stuff that she's projecting, and then when she turns the projector off,
we still have to work on what a
it
smart
all
board
goes
is.
away. I don't really understand how it works, but it's really cool.
So they give us the tour, and the students respond directly to each other and can have these conversations. And obviously with this one, they're kind of responding to just the physical space. But then when we get into something really meaty where there's great thinking going on, they can be saying, wait, what do you think that student meant by that? Or tell me more about this. Or, no, I see something different in this response. Or look at the written work too. And so it all becomes threaded, and these comments then are in here. And the really neat thing is later when we get to the edTPA, they can click on a rubric that comment goes with. And then they click on that little arrow thing on the side, and they can export their comments. And so they have a list that says, like, rubric 1, here are all the moments that I tagged. Rubric 2, here are all the moments that I tagged. So the students do that, and then when they get ready to write task 2, they just export all those comments and cut and paste them into the correct prompts, and they're pretty much done. They'll fill in a few transitional sentences or things like that, but basically it's all then set up for them. And because they've been doing this for 15 weeks or 15 assignments, they don't think anything of just going ahead and tagging up the video, and then they have it all there. Sometimes the kids will be like, oh, she's going to tell you to tag it, because we keep saying, where's the evidence for it? Show me the evidence. And in every conversation, that's what we come back to. Show me the evidence. Wait, the students were confused? Show me the evidence. The students understood? Show me the evidence. Because a lot of times I'll see that students finish teaching, they have a gut reaction of like, oh, that was awful, that class was terrible. But when we stop and look back at the evidence, it's not always what their first gut reaction told them. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's far more nuanced when they look at the video and can say, look at the exact moments of evidence. Oh yeah, I do need to follow up on that, or I do need to come back to that idea. And oh, that's what he really meant by that. He was actually referring to this other comment. Now that I'm playing it again slowly, I can see all of that. So because they are tagging these specific moments, it really helps us keep it so close to that, the evidence that we want them to be seeing. So a few tips with like that first one. I really believe in having a low stakes entry into video because they all are scared of watching themselves on tape, and they do feel nervous, and they do comment on their outfits and how they look and the idioms they're using, the weird things they do with their hands or whatever. So we start with that classroom design video, which kind of warms them up to the idea and really warms their mentors up to the idea, because the mentors are like, okay, you're serious about videotaping, but this first tape doesn't have the students. Got it. And then we keep building from there. The next video has a small group of students, and then we build up to a mini lesson, then we build up to a full-length class. So it helps really have everyone become more comfortable with the equipment and just the fact that we're videotaping regularly. We give the kids lots of opportunities to test. All of these videos are an opportunity for them to see what equipment is working for them and what is not, and then go ahead and try out a different microphone or try out a different device. Some of them are using Chromebooks and then realizing their Chromebooks have no memory, so it's crashing. We need to do all of that problem solving in the fall so that in the winter they're collecting these great videos and then being ready for edTPA. Okay, a second video that comes early on for us in the fall is one that's focused on student thinking. I don't know about your teacher candidates, but when mine go into the field in the fall, they're really focused on the teacher, which is good because they're going to have to take on that role. But they're like, what's the teacher doing? Where's the teacher standing? What's the teacher saying? What's the teacher doing now? And it's almost like there are no kids in the room. And we want to help shift their thinking to what are the students doing? What are the students thinking? How are the students responding to this? So we give them the assignment of picking a video clip that's under 5 minutes and that features a student. It can be a small group of students, but we really want to look at the video in terms of the student. What is the student thinking? What does she understand or know? What background knowledge or experiences is she applying right now? How is she connecting this? And does she demonstrate any misconceptions? And so it could be one-on-one, situation where the student teacher is talking with someone, working through an assignment, or there's a small group discussion. But we really want them to focus in on what evidence can you get from this video in terms of what this student is thinking and understanding. And once we do this video assignment, the student teachers come back and are like, oh my gosh, there's so much more going on in this classroom than I ever realized because I'm looking at 30 people now instead of one. And so it really starts to help them shift to watch the kids so much more closely in everything they do. And then, once they watch that and really carefully analyze that video in terms of what the student truly knows and understands, then we say, what are the logical next steps? And this, early on, starts to inform their understanding of differentiation. Because then they start to really think, oh, now I get it. Susie really understands this piece, but Jose was really on this. And they have different needs. And they start to think about the logical next steps and the support and the challenge and the engagement for these different learners. And it starts to really help them think about the individuals in their class and how they can meet those students' needs. And obviously this connects with rubrics 6, 7, 8, and 10 and task 3, but it's not specifically designed as an edTPA. It is just a video that will help them as they get to that stage later. Some more tips filtered in here. We find that the student teachers really need to watch the tapes more than once. The first time they'll often notice the superficial things. I mentor national board candidates too, and I find the same thing is true. It doesn't matter how many years you've been teaching. You can be a veteran teacher with 20 years experience, and the first thing you notice is like how you look and where you were standing and how you moved. And then once you get all that out of your system, then you can talk about substantive issues of teaching and learning. So with the student teachers too, I encourage them, okay, watch, tell us all the silly things you notice. Okay, now let's watch again. And so I really push them, watch it a second time, watch it a third time. And like I've been saying a few times, evidence for every statement. I don't want just your intuition, that's important, but I want evidence too. I want you to tell me the exact moment. And then we've been working on providing very clear instructions for how to analyze the video. Because when student teachers step back and look at themselves on tape, there's too much. They notice so many different things and they don't know where to start. And so we break it down into specific tasks. For this video, we're looking at student thinking. For this video, we're going to look at how you responded to student responses. For this video, we're going to look very specifically at evidence of student misconceptions or whatever it may be. And then my content area is world languages. I'm a Spanish person. So one that we use is analyzing time in the target language. Our national organization says that world languages teachers should spend 90% of class time in the target language. But when we do this analysis of our partner sites, we're finding that most are at 30 to 40% of time in the target language. So what we do is take a video for a baseline of what it's like before the student teachers take over, and then once the student teachers take on, and we go through minute by minute on Edthena and kind of tag, are we in the target language or in English? And is it a judicious use of English? Is it a necessary use? Or is there something we could do to enhance the context or add visuals or other support to use the target language in a way that's comprehensible? So that's when we use in the target in world languages. And another one that we do in world languages during that student teaching activity is, during the student teaching quarter, is to look for an activity that is truly communicative in nature. So it's not focused on the forms of the language, but instead really focused on function, which is the edTPA focus for world languages, but I think is also just the focus of where we are as a profession in terms of world language teaching. And then the edTPA. So we start in the fall when they're doing the practicum by having a workshop about the edTPA. And again, we use Edthena. And what we do is we post samples of previous students' work that we've got permission to do that for on Edthena, and the students tag those videos. So they start by looking at a sample, and they go through and they say, oh, here's evidence of this, here's evidence of that. And they go through and tag it, and then they read the commentary that previous student teacher wrote and see how they are finding similar things or not, or how other information helps them understand what the student teacher was doing, and it gives them really that background. But again, they can tag that video and share those comments as a collaborative group. And then when they're actually getting to the point where they are putting together their own portfolio, they have a sample to look back at that's really annotated and really has all this information for them. So we use Edthena all along. And another thing that's really great is when we get to the point where students need to pick their clips, it's a hard thing to do, to pick your clip. So we encourage them to go ahead and tag up their video, and then they have that visual, because, as you saw that little timeline bar, wherever all the little marks are, the colored lines, that's probably where the juicy stuff was in the lesson, and let's go look at that. And so they export those comments and look to see, okay, where did I get rubric 7 or where did I get 8? And then how should I select my clip based on where those great moments of real evidence are? And so they use that timeline as a visual to help them start, and then they finalize exactly where they want to do the clip. And then they build it directly in Edthena. There's a platform within Edthena for the edTPA, and so they upload their commentary. There's a little button, they put it all in, and Edthena also checks that they're meeting the requirements. So like if it says a 10-minute clip and they upload a 12-minute clip, it won't let them submit it to Pearson. It'll show them a little grayed out circle so that they realize there's something they need to correct in that. So our students found that really helpful because it was like another checklist for them of what needed to go in, and it's kind of visual the way it's organized. They see the little buttons that they need to fill in, and they change color when they're done. So that's something that we've done. And then another piece is when the scores are released. So I'm the edTPA coordinator in addition to teaching those classes. So when the scores are released, I offer to sit down with every single candidate and go over their score report and help them think about their progress as an educator. And we have this moment where we'll sit down and look at one of their videos from early on, and then look at their video from the edTPA and talk really about the growth that they see and the evidence of growth that they've seen. And then they write for themselves a short action plan of their goals when they enter the profession. So we talk about how everyone always has room to grow as an educator. Where are you right now? And what does that mean for you next year when you're a full-time teacher? What is going to be your focus on your professional development? Because we should all be aware that we constantly have professional development needs. And what is going to be your focus on growing as an educator? And what are your strengths already as an educator? So I wanted to share one final story that happens every year. but a couple weeks ago, it happened again. And, we were thinking as we got ready for this presentation, like, what are the problems that video can help us address as teachers? How can video really impact our practice? And one of the things that I consistently find is video helps candidates see themselves in a way they can't when they're live. And the way this became clear for me again a couple weeks ago was I was sitting with a student who I supervise, and we were watching the video together, and she had analyzed her teaching and looked for evidence, and she and I were talking about, how she was doing and how she could improve and all these things. And then we kind of finished, and I looked at her, and she started to cry. I was like, oh no, I pushed too hard. We didn't find enough strengths. I was like, what's going on? So I was like, what's going on? I'm so sorry. Tell me what's going on. I want to help. What's going on? And she said, no, it's nothing bad. She said, I'm a first-generation college kid. My parents are undocumented. It's been a hard year. I never thought I would go to college. I never thought I would go to college. She said, now I'm sitting here looking at this video, and I see that I'm a teacher now. I see that I've become a teacher and that I have a classroom full of kids that are learning and that I have a chance to change that. And when she was live in the classroom, it was hard for her to notice that because she was so busy with all the different things that she had going on. But when she stepped back and had a chance to watch that tape, she saw a teacher. And that, for her, was really a powerful moment that I think was uniquely visible because of stepping outside of her role in the classroom and standing outside and seeing it. But it gave her the chance to see that she is a teacher. And we see that every year. Someone will say something along those lines of just, wow, I see the impact that I have on students when I watch these tapes, and I can see the power of the profession and the power of what I can do when I carefully craft lessons and when I really engage students in meaningful ways. So I also want to make sure we had time for questions. Are there other questions? And, Megan can come back up and answer questions too. Oh, thank you. Yes.
So in terms of cost, edTPA is not cheap for candidates, and I'm assuming you have to buy an Edthena account, or does your program cover the cost?
Yes. So what we do is we bundle Edthena and edTPA as a fee, and it is, students do have to pay for it, but if they qualify for financial aid, this can go into their financial aid packet, and then it's covered depending on what they qualify for. We bundle the two together, and it's just one of the fees during your licensure year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Other questions? Yes.
I just think this is just great what you're doing. We don't have Edthena, we use TK20. Does anybody in here use TK20? Can you do the same thing with the tags? Because I don't know.
I don't know because I don't use TK20. I don't know. We'll have to go ask them in their booth because I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. Yes.
I'm just wondering, with the permissions for having all the students watch it, do you just change, how do you recognize or letting people know that it could be a whole group?
That's a great question. So we do not use the standard edTPA permission slip. What we have is a permission slip that's like the edTPA one plus. It's got an extra paragraph that says it will be used for coursework. Our master's students do an action research project, so it has a line in there that it could be used for their own action research projects, and it says that the videos can also be saved for use internally for our training of local assessment, because we locally assess all of our portfolios even though they go to Pearson, and so we save a couple of them to be used for our training purposes. So we have an extra paragraph on our release form that allows it to be used in these contexts in class and in these different ways.
Ours is similar too for program improvement.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful day.